Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I've got some articles here that I thought would be of interest to you, so get them going. It appears that I have about 7 of them here. The first one is off of freethoughtproject.com, and it is entitled Exclusive Elderly Disabled Veteran Rotting in Solitary for Digging Ponds on His Own Property. There's probably a lot of you that listen to my shows that probably already know about Joe Robertson, but we've had some new subscribers, so I thought I'd go ahead and bring this to everybody's attention here so that we're all up to speed. This is out of Basin, Montana. It says, when the Congress passed the Clean Water Act in 1948, it was an attempt by the legislature to control the pollution of which so many Americans were being made aware. Congress know at the time the bill became law that it would create a dragnet catch of seemingly law-abiding citizens. There's no question Joe Robertson liked to thumb his nose to federal authorities over what he believed belonged to him and what he thought was property of the federal government. At one time, Robertson, a disabled vet who suffers from PTSD, owned a gold mine called Manhattan Lode. The Robertsons even moved up in an effort to apparently carve out a homestead in the hills above Basin, Montana. There were several run-ins with authorities. Robertson had built several structures on federal land, fence, barns, etc. But when he decided to build 9 watering ponds on his property, that's when it all went south for the 77-year-old veteran. Agents from the EPA, the Forest Service, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Jefferson County, and the chief deputy attorney all descended on Robertson's property to inspect what they considered to be a violation of the Clean Water Act. Robertson's property had already been sold to a real estate agent, a transaction the Robertsons dispute, and 3 of the ponds were also reportedly built on federal land, as well as 6 on what used to be his own. Every town in the U.S. probably has a Joe Robertson, someone who feels like their property is theirs to do with what they wish, but those folks often meet a cruel fate when the government, especially the federal government, gets involved. The department filed a criminal case against Robertson, and the senior citizen was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for damaging wetlands and waters belonging to the United States. The EPA celebrated their victory within a Justice Department announcement following a 4-day federal trial. A Montana jury found Joseph David Robertson, 77, 2 counts of unauthorized discharge of pollutants into waters of the United States and 1 count of injury or of United States property. Part of the statement reads, the justice, it's scrolling around on me here. I'm trying to get everything to catch up. Okay, the Justice Department explained their case against Robertson. The United States introduced evidence and expert testimony from the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA that wetlands had a significant nexus to traditional navigatable waters and therefore were waters of the United States. The keywords in the statement, wetlands and waters of the United States, are the ones federal prosecutors used to put Robertson away. And it's those same words with which Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, takes umbrage. Wrote in his book titled Government Bullies, the Clean Water Act never even mentioned the term wetlands while passing through Congress for approval. Bureaucracy, the EPA, simply created the concept and defines it in district terminology depending upon whatever scenario they are currently considering. Literally can mean whatever the EPA wants it to mean. The definition of wetlands has become so absurd and transparent that the Army Corps of Engineers developed the migratory bird theory. This theory states that if your land point for any migratory bird that has traveled between real navigatable waters, then your land is now de facto connected to the interstate navigatable streams. I'm not kidding. This theory is irrational and completely illogical. enforceable law. It happened because Congress has abdicated its duty in this area. Citizens often run afoul of these rules inadvertently due to the constant evolution of and unexplained regulations. In an attempt to remain neutral in Robertson's case, but also draw a comparison, when the BP oil spill took place in the Gulf of Mexico on April the 20th, 2010, a massive explosion on the offshore oil rig took the lives of 11 oil rig workers and resulted in history's largest discharge of crude oil in waters. The ruptured well resulted in the release of an estimated 4.9 billion barrels of crude oil into the Gulf, making it the largest marine oil spill in history. The same Justice Department, which sent Robertson, arguably an elderly old codger who liked picking small schoolyard type fights with the federal government, had also investigated the BP oil spill. According to Rutgers, a Justice Department probe into the spill led to criminal charges against just 4, mostly lower-level BP employees. Advisor Robert Kaluza was acquitted in February by a jury of the same pollution charge as the Vidrines. Kaluza and Vidrine previously faced manslaughter charges, but those were dropped. Former BP Vice President David Rainey was acquitted by a jury last June of charges he lied to federal agents about how much oil was spilled. Engineer Kurt Mitt was sentenced to 6 months of probation last November after pleading guilty to damaging a computer, a misdemeanor. No one spent a day in prison. Not one person involved with history's largest oil spill spent one day behind bars as a convict. Squatting gold miner dig a few ponds on what he considered to be his own property, and admittedly a little sliver of federal land, showed no mercy. And he's faring well in prison, reportedly. His wife told reporters he's been kept in solitary confinement and has suffered fainting spells and poor health. After the conviction, an independent environmental consulting firm, Environmental LLC, Nationwide Wetlands, Waters, and Wildlife Consulting, located in Rigby, Idaho, conducted a pro bono evaluation of the property the federal government claimed had led to harmful pollution of wetlands of the Clean Water Act. Robertson's family gave the Free Thought Project a copy of this report. The firm concluded that the area where Robertson built his ponds could not be considered wetlands, nor did they find a single sliver of evidence that Robertson caused pollution to throw an innocent man in prison. Key writes, according to the USGS topo map, Mount Thompson Quadrangle is the unnamed tributary to Cataract Creek headwater drainage channel. According to the NRCS soil survey, none of the ponds are underlain by land soils, and according to USFWS NWI maps, none of the ponds are located within federally mapped wetlands. Concluded Robertson was within his rights to proceed with excavation without being compelled to acquire a permit because the ponds were relatively small in nature and were being used to feed livestock and wild animals. Key observed that the pond construction, either within the narrow channel of the intermittent creek or adjacent wetland, did not appear to have required a permit since the work was accomplished by a non-regulated excavation. They wrote, taking note of small farm equipment he used to construct the ponds in question. Furthermore, the report added, we understand that the pond excavation was accomplished using a Case 780 track hoe with a 36-inch wide bucket and or 5 backhoe with a 24-inch wide bucket. Any dredged material dripping from the bucket back into the water or wetland is considered an incidental fallback and therefore not subject to any requirement for a Section 404 permit block rule. The firm found that Robertson did not need a federal permit required for pond's construction because his equipment was not considered heavy equipment and the dredged drippings sequential. Ironically, the independent evaluation also found that Robertson may have actually done the federal government a favor by creating the ponds. They write, KE determined that the creation of the ponds 1, 2, and 3, which we understand are located on USFS lands, have actually enhanced the aquatic resources relative to the intermittent channel and adjacent wetlands. The report, one could conclude Robertson was within his rights to construct the ponds. They weren't located in a wetland, and while he may have erred in building ponds on federal property, the environment is now better off as a result. Joe Robertson came down to an issue of property rights, states' rights, and federal government. Did he have a right to construct ponds on his own land? Montana have dealt with Robertson on their own without the heavy-handedness of the federal government's intrusion and ultimate prosecution of the aging veteran? And is it fair that the BP officials can get away with the largest case of pollution in history of mankind, yet one cranky old mountain man can't get away with building ponds to feed his animals? And more reveal the sad state of affairs in America, where corporations are given free passes and the rights of the individuals to live as he trampled. The next article that I have for you is it appears that 2016 Oregon Person of the Year has 25 nominees. One of them is Ammon Bundy. It says, who was the most influential, fascinating, or newsworthy person we've written about in 2016? We're letting our readers decide. This is off of OregonLive.com. It says, we've narrowed the field to 25 candidates for your consideration. As you'll see, they aren't all heroes. Some of them controversial figures. Some were involved in tragic stories. Some are longtime leaders. And some you may have never heard of. And one's not a person at all. The finalists all have local or regional ties at one point or another, captivated readers, or encapsulated issues that defining moments for Oregon in 2016. Read about the candidates below, listed in no particular order to refresh your memories, then make your own pick. You may vote. The poll closes at 11:59 p.m. on December the 20th. Read the whole thing here. I'm just going to go over the names and what their claim to fame is, and you can pull this article up and read it yourself. I think that most of you that listen to my broadcast will probably pull this up and then go to the where you can vote. Maybe you put in a vote for Ammon, because it seems to me personally that that Oregon thought so much of him that they wanted to keep him there the majority of the year. So seems to me like he deserves a vote. And I for one, would be tickled to death to see Ammon be the Oregon Person of the Year. It just seems appropriate to me. But let's see who we got here. We got Robert Borba. He was a cowboy vigilante. And we've got Phil Knight, the Nike co-founder and philanthropist. We've got juror number 4 from the Oregon standoff trial. We've got Chloe Udally, I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced, political novice who upset Steve Novick on Portland City Council. Vinti Upajante, a teen inventor. Bernie the Bird. Bernie Bird, I guess it is. He doesn't have a name. Let's see. I will read this about the bird. It is He didn't vote, we hope, but for the fleeting moment, he was, or put Oregon in the national spotlight during the presidential primaries. It was like a scene out of a Disney movie as Bernie Sanders orated his disdain for the millionaire billionaire class to a crowd at the Moda Center. A tiny sparrow perched on his podium, prompting thousands to proclaim only in Oregon. Okay. Then we got Ammon Bundy, the Oregon standoff leader. We've got Dennis Richardson, full Republican to win statewide elected office over 20 years. We've got Gregory McKelvey, Portland resistance leader. We've got Tobin Heath, U.S. Soccer Female Player of the Year. Ursula Le Guin, a local literary legend. Devon Allen, UO wide receiver turned pro hurdler. Lieutenant Peter St. John, injured firefighter who evacuated people in the Northwest Portland gas explosion. Kruzanich, Intel CEO. Anna Brown, U.S. District Judge presiding over the Oregon standoff trial. John Burgundy, OHSU superstar hearing researcher. Jamie Wisner, former OSU guard who helped her team to the Jason Gooding, Seaside Police Sergeant, killed in the line of duty. Carol Smith, former superintendent of PPS, who retired amid lead scandal. Jamie Supra, state's first legally non-person. Vance Day, indicted Marion County Circuit Judge. Ashton Easton, still the world's greatest athlete. Eddie Bolzanos, Forest Grove walkout organizer. Larry O'Day, former Portland police chief. Kate Brown, first openly LGBT governor. It says you still have until 11:59 p.m. December 20th to vote for your favorite candidate for Person of the Year below. You can only vote once a day. We'll announce the winner as well as an update on that person on December the 24th. As your ballot there at the bottom of this, so you can pull that up. It's all these URLs are in the description of the video, so you can do what you need to do there. But I thought that was worth bringing up. The next one I have for you, Batkin.com, and it says pipeline spill cleanup still ongoing in Billings County. Spill last week in Billings County released around 4,200 barrels or 176,000 gallons of crude oil from the Bell Forge pipeline, approximately 16 miles northwest of Belfield. Rutgers reported that Bill Seuss, program manager for the North Dakota Department of Health, said approximately 3,100 barrels of the 4,200 spilled slid into Ashcoley Creek, Missouri River. Approximately 5.4 miles of the creek have been impacted. Seuss says more than 100 people are working to clean up the spill, reported CNN. And it says anytime it gets into the water, we respond differently and we take it more seriously. Are underway with approximately a third of the crude reported as recovered since the leak was reported on December the 5th, Seuss told Seuss told Rutgers that cleanup has been difficult due to the extreme cold, but temperatures also slowed the movement of the oil down the creek since the water is frozen. The Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, the PHMSA, continues to investigate the incident. The company is working with the remediation company out of Alberta that specializes in cold weather cleanup. The Bell Forge pipeline is 6 inches in diameter and carries approximately 1,000 barrels of oil per hour, 24,000 barrels per day, according to Wendy Owen, spokesperson for the True Companies. the company that owns the pipeline. True Companies, based out of Casper, Wyoming, Owens said cause of the leak is unknown and monitoring equipment did not detect the leak, likely because of the intermittent flow. The pipeline is located in very rough terrain in the Badlands of North Dakota, and Owen said the remote area and the topography itself makes access points difficult, reported Forum News service reporter Amy Dalrymple on Monday. Sue said the pipeline is located in a hill that is slumping, which may have caused the leak. Dalrymple noted that it's unknown how the Bell Forge pipeline, or how long the Bell Forge pipeline was leaking before the landowner had discovered it, despite reports by Kevin Connors, pipelines program supervisor for the North Dakota Oil and Gas Division, that the pipeline had gauges and meters to monitor for leaks. Connors also said the company does aerial inspections of the pipelines once a month. The spill has fueled the protest cries near the site of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Brianna Acosta from TrueActivist.com took the media to task for not reporting spills with the same fervor as the pipeline protests. She said any reporting on the spill focused on economic impact to consumers rather than the ecological repercussions. Acosta said in discussions of another recent pipeline spill in Alabama earlier this year, this oil leak proves that everything the Native Americans are worried about will eventually happen to their land. Tara Hossack, a Native American environmental activist from the Oseti-Saskatchewan protest camp, told NBC News that she believes an oil spill into the Missouri would be inevitable. Hossack, National Campaigns Director for the Honor the Earth, a nonprofit organization focused on raising awareness and financial support for Indigenous environmental justice, said the spill gives further credence to our position that pipelines are not safe. Oil companies' interest is on their own profit margins, not public safety. Energy Transfer Partners, the parent company of the Dakota Access Pipeline, says its pipeline would include safeguards that would close valves within 3 minutes if a breach is detected. However, opponents to the pipeline argue such monitors can fail and now use the Bell Forge pipeline incident as evidence. The Dakota Access, however, argues that their equipment is updated and state-of-the-art as opposed to the other pipelines whose detection equipment is outdated. Next article I have for you is off of WND.com, and it says Sheriff's probe finds Obama's birth certificate is fake. Year-long forensic investigation into the computer image of the long-form Hawaiian birth certificate image that Barack Obama released during the White House news conference during his first term and presented to the American people as an official government document concluded it is fake. The probe also confirms that those who were subjected to the derogatory birther label from many media outlets and Democrats were right, at least regarding the document used to establish Obama's eligibility to be president. The issue is that the U.S. Constitution requires the president to be a natural-born citizen, but does not define the term. Scholarly works cited by the founders defined it as citizen at birth, born in the country, of the country, or merely the offspring of two citizens of the country. The birth certificate Obama displayed on the White House website as proof positive of his eligibility states that he was born in Hawaii to an American mother and a Kenyan father. Some immediately pointed out alleged anomalies, questioning its validity, while others argued it also could prove his ineligibility because his father was not a citizen. Some of the lawsuits argued that Obama was a dual citizen, though his father, contending that framers of the Constitution excluded dual citizens from qualifying as natural-born citizens. Give it to scroll up here. Here we go. Eventually, just as the #1 bestseller, Where's Your Birth or Where's the Birth Certificate, was combining with a challenge from billionaire businessman Donald Trump to force Obama's hand, Obama held a White House news conference to release a copy of his birth certificate. Now, what has been described as the only official law enforcement investigation ever done into the Obama birth certificate, ordered by Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County, Arizona, has concluded it is not authentic. There's a video here prepared by the investigators and released at a news conference on Thursday for you to pull up and take a look at it if you would care to. And the article goes on and says Jerome Corsi, PhD, WND senior staff writer and author of Where's the Birth Certificate, was credited by sheriff's officials with contributing to the investigation. Corsi said Mike Zullo, posse, and Sheriff Joe Arpaio have done the United States a heroic service, demonstrating by forensic analysis that the long-form birth certificate produced in a White House news conference on April 27, 2011, as Barack Obama's authentic birth certificate is a forgery. The 9 points of forgery between the Joanna Ani birth certificate and Obama's long-form birth certificate proved convincingly that the Ani birth certificate was the source document from which the Obama LFBC was created. Corsi said that Arpaio's 5-year effort vindicates the extensive research WND conducted over years to bring this issue to the attention of the American public. Conclusion is that the Hawaii Department of Health has not shown the American public the original 1961 birth records for Barack Obama. This, he said. President Obama's birth certificate is fake, as proven now by the legitimate law enforcement examination, raises serious questions that high crimes and misdemeanors have been committed at the highest level of government. The clear conclusion is that Obama's presidency may have been illegitimate, having violated Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. Impeachment procedures may be required, even if those procedures are conducted after Obama leaves office. The sheriff's video there said there were 9 images on the Obama's birth certificate that appear to be identical to and copied from other birth certificates issued in Hawaii just days after his birth. Say something here, so we try to get this shut down. And it's acting up. Of course. Okay, well, we'll see here. Says that certificate belongs to Joanna Ani. The copied items include the word Honolulu, Oahu twice, 3 different X's. The identical nature raised serious questions since they would have been applied to original documents by typewriter carriage and roller at the time. The left date stamp and right date stamp explained the investigator on the video. It doesn't just make sense that Alvin Onaka's stamp and the April 25th date stamp were lifted from someplace also? This question: if anyone presented you with a document in your life that was suspect, would you really accept it, or would you begin intense vetting? Be it a house title, car title, a piece of currency, anything. Would you accept something the suspect presented to you in your life? If you answered no, then ask yourself a second question. Don't the American people have the right to vet the documents that are presented by public officials? Who assisted the investigation was Reed Hayes, a court-qualified handwriting and document examiner who runs a business in Hawaii. He is on the board of Scientific Association of Forensic Examiners and has been in business nearly 40 years. Four Labs, an Italian company that specializes in extricating information from multimedia files, also produced the results. We had two experts from two countries in separate disciplines of forensics that came to one conclusion: Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate is not authentic, the report said. Zullo, Arapio's lead investigator, said the only reason why his investigators went forward and never came to a close was because of Sheriff Joe Arapio. Sheriff Arapio's utilized his statutory right to confirm his authority to conduct this investigation, he said. As a result, this investigation was done with the utmost of professionalism, unbiased, and with no political motivation. We let the evidence direct the investigation. He pointed out that Arapio and others on his team started out with the assumption that Obama's document was legitimate, and they just needed to affirm that. Was exercised to try to clear the document as authentic. However, the evidence and the weight of it simply would not permit that, Zullo said. News conference, Zullo quoted from the investigation of Hayes: "The nail in the coffin that proves the certificate of live birth is unauthentic is the exact lineup of numerous entries on both certificates." He said the experts likened the evidence to being as reliable as a fingerprint. Zullo said there were no indications of problem. Or try that again. Zullo said there indications of problems when he interviewed Hawaiian officials about the document. He said they verified there was a birth record on file, but Hawaii statutes allow amendments to a birth document, so there is no way to know the details. Regarding the birth announcement in local newspapers, there is a problem, he said. They don't tell you anything. Hawaii says Department of Health in Hawaii must create a record based on the representation from anyone. It'll also refuse to help, he said. We have no idea what's on that birth certificate. We have no idea if there was a birth certificate. We don't know if he's a natural born citizen. That wasn't anything we were pursuing. He noted that the safety paper appearing in the birth certificate image can even be purchased on eBay. Sheriff Arapio added, 5 years ago, I said one thing: show us the microfiche, the birth certificate, and we'll go home. I plan on turning this over, or try this again. I plan on turning over this investigation this month to the federal government and Congress, and hope Congress, number one, will pass a law. The president should be vetted. Common sense. Maybe some members of Congress will hold some hearings open to the public regarding this matter. If they can hold hearings on underinflated footballs, why can't they hold one on this? Look at our evidence. Just look at it, he concluded. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to answer any questions. We have sensitive information, but I'm not going into it. If it a fake birth certificate. And there's video in this if you want to take a look at that at your leisure. The sheriff's office concluded it is the opinion of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office that the birth certificate on your right belonging to Joanna Ani was in fact used as a source document in the digital creation of Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate. The video notes 9 points of forgery. What are the odds that two stamps in two separate boxes stamped by hand, days apart, would have the exact same angle? The investigators asked. It should be pointed out that these stamps were looked at by two separate document examiners in two forensic disciplines on two continents. The investigators went further into the analysis, finding twin sisters whose birth certificates are similar to Ani's. While they were born minutes apart, their documents have variations that are not found between Ani's and Obama's, who were born weeks apart. When you have two separate documents with two hand-placed stamps at the same angles, obviously a forgery has taken place, the investigator said. Ironically, the New York Post on Thursday posted a plea by celebrities to electors to not vote for Trump because they instead should support a man with the requisite qualifications. When the investigation reveals the man who has been president for 8 years has yet to document his qualifications. On that issue, a coalition of mostly celebrities appealed for 37 conscientious Republican electors to abandon their oaths to support the Republican winner and vote for someone else. Even if such extraordinary and unlikely move was successful, it still wouldn't deny Trump the presidency, since it would then just throw the election to the House of Representatives, where members would have of Trump or Hillary Clinton. WND reported when the news conference was announced how the issue had badgered Obama from before his first inauguration until well into his second term. Now apparently it's raining on his legacy. WND reported Obama explained he decided to release it because the internet chatter was becoming a distraction. At the time, the Washington Times described Obama as visibly frustrated and noted that a recent CBS News New York Times poll showed 45% of registered Republican voters believe Obama was not born in the United States. I know that there's going to be a segment of people for which no matter what we put out, this issue will not be put to rest, but I'm speaking to the vast majority of the American people, Obama said then. We do not have time for this kind of silliness. We've got better stuff to do. I've got better stuff to do. His statement came just as he was departing for Chicago to appear on Oprah Winfrey's television show. But while the issue became known in liberal and self-leaning circles as the biggest conspiracy theory of all time, some document experts questioned the validity of the birth certificate Obama released. Arapio responded to a petition from the constituents by launching a formal cold case posse law enforcement investigation of the document. In 2012, Arapio held a news conference that concluded there was probable cause to believe that the document Obama released was an official government document, is a computer-generated forgery. Arapio, known for his strict enforcement of immigration laws, commissioned the investigation team after local citizens presented him with a petition expressing concern that Obama might not be eligible for Arizona's presidential ballot. Mike Zullo, Arapio's lead investigator, said at the time his team believed the Hawaii Department of Health engaged in a systematic effort to hide from the public inspection any original 1961 birth records it may have in its possession. Deputized preacher, pastor, author, radio host, and former law enforcement officer Carl Gallups of the P.P. Simmons blog in his pursuit of the truth. This investigation and its forensic conclusions, in my opinion, will vindicate a lot of people. That vindication includes the sheriff and his investigator, of course, but also President-elect Donald Trump. It also vindicates millions of Americans who dared to ask the question about his nefarious birth certificate and have been lampooned and marginalized by certain members of the press and other operatives for doing so. The investigation also vindicates those in the press who did have the guts to speak to this and to spend time investigating it, like WND Gallup said. I have a feeling that this matter is not over. Not by a long shot. I cannot imagine that authorized federal authorities will now not step in and investigate this matter to its conclusion. The potential ramifications of the findings of the investigation are astounding, perhaps historically said. The cold case posse advised Arapio that they believed forgers committed two crimes. First, they said it appeared the White House fraudulently created a forgery that it characterized as an officially produced government birth record. Second, the White House fraudulently presented to residents of Maricopa County and to the American public at large a forgery represented as proof positive of President Obama's authentic 1961 Hawaii long-form birth certificate. Leaders also said they had developed credible evidence that Obama's selective service card was a forgery based on an examination of the postal date stamp on the document. Also, records of immigration and naturalization service cards filled out by passengers arriving on international flights originating outside the United States in the month of August 1961, examined at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., were missing records for the week of President Obama's birth. Arapio said when a continuing investigation was needed, and his investigators set to work. WND reported in 2015 when the issue was raised in a CNN interview in which anchor Jake Tapper extricated Arapio for questioning Obama's document. And there's video of that here as well if you want to take a look at that. It says on CNN's The Lead, Tapper said, "You've trafficked in this rather preposterous notion that Obama was not born in the United States and that he may have forged his birth certificate that he released." He continued, "Why would you risk your credibility on issues you care about, like legal immigration, or try that again, like illegal immigration, like law enforcement, by getting involved in this nonsense?" "What do you mean, risk?" Arapio asked. "I'm the chief law enforcement officer elected by the people. I have a right to investigate and speak out. I'm not talking about where he came from. I don't care where he came from. We're working on fraudulent forged government document. That's what we're doing." Trapper interjected, "You're maintaining that the birth certificate that the President of the United States revealed and released to the public, you're maintaining that it is fraudulent?" "That's right," Arapio responded. The CNN host asked, "Is there anyone, any credible law enforcement person outside of you and your organization and your contractors who have any agreement with you on this?" "No, they haven't looked at it," Arapio said. What, are you kidding? I'm probably the only law enforcement official who has looked into it. Nobody looks into it. They shy away from it." Once again, frustrated Trapper interrupted, "Because the president was born in Hawaii." And Arapio says, "I don't care where he was born. I'm talking about a fraudulent government document, a birth certificate. That's all I'm concerned with. That's the law." Previously, Arapio affirmed he was pretty well convinced Obama's birth certificate, as released by the White House in 2011, is a fraudulent fake document. "I've been in law enforcement for 55 years, Arapio said on the Aaron Klein investigative radio. "I think I know a fraudulent fake document. I'm not a computer expert. I rely on my people, but I'm pretty well convinced it's a fake document." And there's video of that as well. It says, but Zullo has indicated the White House computer image of Obama's birth certificate contains anomalies that are unexplainable unless the document had been fabricated piecemeal by a human intervention rather than being copied from a genuine paper document. Zullo has noted that Reed Hayes, a document examiner who has served as expert witness for Seattle law firm from Perkins Cole, the firm that flew an attorney to Honolulu to personally deliver 2 paper copies of the birth certificate to the White House, has concluded in a signed affidavit that the document posted on the White House website is entirely fabricated. The issue was Hawaiian officials refusing to verify any information about Obama's birth certificate. Even the hospital where Obama said he was born refused to cooperate. Also, at the time Obama was born, only a short time after Hawaii was admitted as a state, there were a number of ways a Hawaiian birth certificate could have been obtained without the person having been born in Hawaii. 6 years into Obama's administration, WND reported a poll revealed nearly 1/4 of American adults didn't even believe he's a U.S. citizen, let alone a natural-born citizen, and another 17% were unsure. Found 41% of Republicans believed Obama is not an American citizen. A briefer shared, or try that again, a belief shared by 21% of those and 11% of Democrats. Just over 20% of Republicans and unaffiliated adults also are not sure, but only 7% of those in the president's party share that doubt. The polling organization said in a report titled, "Have We Got a Conspiracy for You? 9/11, JFK, Obama Citizenship?" Overall, 23% said the theory that Obama is not an American citizen is true, and another 17% said they weren't sure. 60% reject the theory as false. Ironically, in recent months, it's been Obama, his wife Michelle, Secretary of State John Kerry, and even his former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton who have raised the issue over and over. It was during an appearance in Nairobi, Secretary of State John Kerry said he thanked the Kenyan president for giving America a president of the United States. To the contested issue of where Obama was born, Kerry told Kenya's foreign minister he had a conversation with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta concerning the Olympic Games in Rio and President Obama's birthplace. I had the pleasure of beginning that meeting with Kenyatta as I want to begin this press conference this afternoon by congratulating Kenya on something no nation's athletes have ever before accomplished, and that is to win both the men's and the women's marathon races at the Olympic Games. Absolutely extraordinary. When I mentioned that to President Kenyatta, he promptly said to me, "Well, we also had a hand in helping you win a silver because the person who won came from Kenya." And there was laughter. And I said, "Actually, Mr. President, you did better than a silver and gold. You gave us a president of the United States." More laughter. So you can see we had a very friendly and positive beginning to the conversation. And there's video of that if you want to take a look at it. Obama himself raised the question at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia during an address in which he urged Americans to elect Clinton. You know, there's been a lot of talk in this campaign about what America's lost. People will tell us that our way of life is being undermined by changes and dark forces beyond our control, Obama said. They tell voters there is a real America out there that must be restored. This isn't an idea that started with Donald Trump. It's been peddled by politicians for a long time, probably from the start of our republic. And it's got me thinking about the story I told you 12 years ago tonight about my Kansas grandparents and the things they taught me when I was growing up. They came from the heartland. Their ancestors began settling there about 200 years ago. I don't know if they had their birth certificates, but they were there. The mention of birth certificates, which prompted laughter and cheers from the crowd, was a deviation from the president's prepared remarks, and comes just 2 nights after his wife, First Lady Michelle Obama, brought up the issue of her husband's citizenship and faith during her speech to the DNC. At that time, Michelle Obama said one of the jobs of the White House was to teach her daughters to ignore those who question their father's citizenship or faith. She was referencing the challenges to her husband's constitutional qualification for office as natural-born citizen. Hillary Clinton went birther during a campaign appearance in Charlotte, North Carolina, when she tweeted, "Someone who has never forgotten where he came from. And Donald, if you're out there tweeting, it's Hawaii." Hillary on at POTUS. Among the many records the Obama camp has refused to release are the marriage licenses of his father, Barack Sr., and mother, and Dunham, name change records, Barry Sorrento to Barack Hussein Obama, adoption records, records of his wife and mother's reparation as U.S. citizens from Indonesia, baptism records, Noliani Elementary School, Hawaii records, Puna Ito School financial aid or school records, Occidental College financial aid records, Harvard Law School records, Columbia Senior Thesis, Columbia College records, Illinois State Bar Association, files from his term as Illinois State Senator, his law client list, medical records, and passport records. Can't make this stuff up. The next one I have for you is off of CBSNews.com, and it says, delivers assault rifle instead of toy airplane. Oceanside, North Carolina. Or I'm sorry, try that again. Oceanside, New York was horrified when a UPS delivery they thought was a Christmas present turned out to be something else, an assault rifle. The husband of the family said they even drove around with a firearm after having the UPS delivery man place the box in the trunk of their car thinking it was a gift they'd ordered, CBS New York reports. Newsday reported that the husband, identified by the newspaper as Joel Berman, opened the keyboard-sized case in front of his wife and 6-year-old granddaughter Wednesday night in Oceanside on Long Island. Instead of a toy plane they were buying for the friend's son, they found a semi-automatic rifle, scope stand, ammo clip, and copies of an Arizona man's driver's license and concealed weapons permit. They hustled their granddaughter out of the room and called police, who picked up the weapon. A spokesperson for UPS said that in a statement that this was a highly unusual incident and that they are investigating, CBS New York reports. UPS does accept shipment of certain firearms in our domestic U.S. system as long as the shipments comply with applicable law and are shipped in accordance with company policies, the statement said. These shipments must be between licensed manufacturers, dealers, distributors, collectors, and exclude consumer shipments. UPS puts responsibility with the shippers of regulated goods to follow the requirements for labeling and specific packaging. UPS said it is working with the couple to ensure the toys they ordered get delivered in time for the holidays. Boy, that'd be a surprise, wouldn't it? Holy moly. The next one I have here for you is off of thefreethoughtproject.com and says, 2 entire police departments shut down during FBI raids over massive DEA drug ring conspiracy. They're basically treating these buildings like crime scenes. A massive raid was carried out by the FBI on Thursday of a Tangifoa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Parish Sheriff's Office and Hammond Police Department. The raids were part of a year-long investigation into a U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency task force accused of massive conspiracy to rob drug dealers selling the stolen narcotics. According to the Advocate, 2 former members of the New Orleans-based task force, both of whom worked for the Tangihoa Parish Sheriff's Office, are facing federal charges, and one pled guilty earlier this year to state drug conspiracy charges. During the raids on Thursday, both departments were completely shut down as FBI agents seized computers, cell phones, and case files. The raids involved an earlier investigation the Free Thought Project reported on in March, after Tangifoa Parish Sheriff's Office deputy and DEA task force member Johnny Domingue took a plea deal and began rolling over on his co-conspirators. The FBI nabbed more crooked cops. Before he started selling out his fellow criminal DEA cops, acknowledged that drugs had been stolen with the dual purpose of ingesting them and selling them for profit. He also admitted to selling cocaine that had been stored in evidence bags at the DEA's office in Matare. During the raid on Dominguez, January, authorities found a whopping 300 grams of cocaine, hydrochloride, oxycodone pills, methadone, Xanax, and a voluminous number of manila envelopes that contained additional prescription medications, according to court documents. According to the advocate, the materials taken during Thursday's raid include a computer from the office of Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office, or Sheriff Daniel Edwards, said one law enforcement official, speaking on condition of anonymity because he wasn't authorized to discuss the operation. Edwards, brother of Governor John Bell Edwards. They're basically treating these buildings like crime scenes, the official said. When multiple police departments are treated like crime scenes, there might be a problem. Is ongoing with many more investigative actions to take place, Jeffrey Salet, the special agent in charge of the FBI's New Orleans office, told reporters. As the advocate reports, Thursday's searches marked an escalation of the misconduct investigation, which has been steeped in secrecy for months as investigators dug into the background of several task force members, including Chad Scott, a longtime DEA agent. The investigation into Scott goes as this corrupt cop, who's since been stripped of his badge, is accused of manipulating witnesses in murder cases as well as leading the crooked drug task force who robbed people and sold drugs. In fact, as reported by the advocate, Scott helped to create pipeline task force officers who began their careers in Parish, having recruited Domingo and others to join the narcotics team, building his own gang of criminal cops. The FBI refused to elaborate on why they raided the Hammond Police Department. However, DEA task force member Carl Newman worked for the department. In March, Newman was implicated in the drug and cash conspiracy and is currently facing charges, including robbery and possession with intent to distribute cocaine and oxycodone. What this case illustrates, we can get it to cooperate with me here. What this case illustrates is the criminal incentive created by the war on drugs and the monopoly of power granted specifically to those tasked with carrying it out. Making arbitrary substances illegal and then tasking individuals with the control of those substances created a temptation of easy money. This case is hardly isolated as this scenario is, but a broken record of corruption playing over and over again in departments across the country. As the Free Thought Project reported in January, a California police officer busted after driving 247 pounds of marijuana all the way across the country. Yuba County Deputy Christopher M. Heath was caught in New York, Pennsylvania. Caught in York, Pennsylvania, with a shipment of marijuana that was worth over $2 million. Case. That's how it reads. That's not the way it's supposed to. The cases were similar, as Heath was an officer on narcotics task force, meaning that he was responsible for putting nonviolent people in prison, drugs as well. Meanwhile, he was selling drugs and taking part in the same actions or locking up people for. State hypocrisy at its worst. And I have one more article in this episode for you. This is off the tribunist.com. Now know what the bus driver was doing during the crash that killed 6 kids. It's what many feared. Last month's deadly bus crash in Chattanooga, Tennessee, was one of the deadliest school bus accidents in modern history. 6 school-aged children died during the crash, and numerous others suffered injuries. Jonathan Walker, The substitute school bus driver was widely believed to be responsible for the crash. Well, we know now that he was. 3 cameras mounted on the bus, one facing the back, one facing forward, and one facing the boarding door. During the time of the crash, cameras on the bus showed that not only was Walker speeding, traveling at a speed of 50 to 52 miles an hour, but he was doing another activity that has already claimed numerous lives. While driving a school bus full of children and speeding, Walker was also actively using his cell phone, according to the cameras on the bus. Studies have shown that using a cell phone's screen while driving can distract a driver to the same dangerous levels as drunk driving. According to a local media report, it was clear to investigators almost immediately that the driver must have been doing something wrong. The most compelling information on Thursday came from Chattanooga's traffic investigator Joe Warren, who interviewed the tire marks who reviewed the tire marks and the surveillance video from the bus that Walker, age 24, was driving. Warren said he has been reconstructing crash scenes for nearly 20 years. I knew right away that I was dealing with a bus that was going too fast, Warren said. The speed limit an hour on that curvy, narrow Tally Road. However, tire marks show Walker was going between 50 and 52 miles per hour when he crashed the school bus into a telephone pole and then into a tree, killing 6 students and injuring the remaining 31 who were riding on the bus. State law is very specific when it comes to using cell phones and when it comes to bus drivers. And once that first child is on the bus, whether it is in motion or not, the cell phones need to be put away, Warren said. Based on the information presented to a Tennessee court, a judge ruled that the grand jury can begin considering charges against Walker. That's all I have for you in this episode. I have more news, so I'll probably be doing some more episodes and releasing them here over the weekend. And I hope you are having a great weekend and getting your Christmas shopping all done. See you on the next one.